The moment he told me I should be grateful just to have a job, something inside my chest went completely cold. I nodded, I smiled, I didn't argue, and that was the exact moment I decided I was done playing fair. If you've ever been screwed over by someone with more money, more power, and zero accountability, this story's for you. Stick with me, and if you like long, real revenge stories that unfold slowly and realistically, consider subscribing. I was 23 years old when I got the job, fresh out of school, cheap suit, bad haircut. The kind of confidence that only exists before life teaches you how little you actually know. The company was a big deal, not a household name. But in the early 90s tech world, they were everywhere. Family-owned, privately held, quietly powerful. They didn't advertise much, didn't talk to press, didn't need to. Contracts came to them. I was hired as a junior business analyst. Nothing glamorous. Spreadsheets, projections, process reviews. The kind of work where if you do it well, nobody notices, and if you screw it up, everyone does. From day one, you could feel the family's presence. They weren't in the trenches with us. They hovered above everything. You'd see them sweep through the office once in a while. Conversations would stop. Shoulders would tighten. They had money in a way that made people careful around them. Neurotic is the word I'd use now. Back then, I just thought they were intense. They argued loudly in closed-door meetings. They changed their minds constantly. They remembered every dollar they'd ever spent on anyone, and they never forgot a perceived slight. But they were brilliant at business, ruthless, surgical, and as tech exploded through the 90s, so did they. I worked hard. Too hard. Nights, weekends, canceled plans. I wanted to matter. And slowly, I did. By my late 20s, I was being pulled into meetings I had no business being in. Ownership meetings, strategic conversations, projects where if you screwed up, you didn't just lose a bonus, you disappeared. Some of my work paid off big. Cost savings, smarter processes, better forecasting. I didn't just crunch numbers, I explained them in plain English. Executives liked that. The owners started recognizing me in the hallway, using my first name, asking questions. That's how it starts. Around that same time, like everyone else in tech, I was investing. This was the 90s. If you weren't in tech stocks, you felt like an idiot. I had money in Cisco, Yahoo, AOL, smaller names nobody remembers now, and I talked about it casually. Breakroom conversations, offhand comments after meetings, nothing formal, nothing tied to my job, just talk. Until one day, in late 1999, one of the owners pulled me aside. Not HR, not legal, just him. He said, "You seem to have a good feel for the market." I laughed it off. Then he said, "I want you to manage some of my personal money." That made me pause. He wasn't talking about the company. He was talking about his money. $1 million. He wanted big risk, big reward. He said those exact words. I told him I wasn't licensed, that it wasn't my role, that this felt messy. He waved it off. "Write something up," he said. "We'll make it clean." So I did. We documented everything. Separate accounts. Written acknowledgement that this had nothing to do with my job. A 20% share of profits. Consent signatures on paper. It was airtight. In reality, it was a ticking time bomb. What I didn't tell him, what I didn't tell anyone, was that I started to feel something was wrong. By late 99, the tech world didn't feel healthy anymore. Companies with no revenue were valued like giants. Burn rates were insane. I saw financials through my job that told a different story than stock prices. No inside information, just pattern recognition. So after the new year, I did something unpopular. I started shorting tech stocks, aggressively. I did it with my own money first, then with his. Margin leverage, options puts. If tech collapsed, I'd win big. If it didn't, I'd get crushed. January and February were rough. Losses, sleepless nights. Staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., wondering if I'd ruined my career before 30. Then March hit, and everything started to fall apart. For everyone else, for me, it was like watching gravity finally kick in. By early summer, the owner's account had $1.35 million in cash from closed positions, and over $1 million more still working in open shorts and options. That's when he called me into his office. He looked tired, irritated. The company was feeling pressure for the first time. "How bad is my money down?" he asked. I told him the truth. He blinked, smiled, said, "Great, wire it to me." That's when I reminded him about my cut, $70,000. And the room changed. His face hardened, his voice sharpened. He told me times were tough, that I was lucky to have a job, that the company needed that money, but I should be grateful. I sat there listening, feeling something sink in my stomach. This wasn't confusion, this was greed. And when I realized that, something broke. I wired him the money, all of it, and I said nothing about what was still open. That night, I didn't sleep at all, because I understood something very clearly. He didn't respect me. He didn't think I deserved what I earned, and he wasn't paying attention. That was the betrayal, and it was just the beginning. The weeks after that wire transfer were some of the quietest weeks of my life. Not peaceful. Quiet in a heavy way. On the surface, everything went back to normal. I showed up to work. I sat in meetings. I nodded at the right moments. I answered emails. I hit deadlines. Nobody treated me differently, if anything. Ownership seemed warmer toward me. That should have felt like a relief. Instead, it made my skin crawl. Because every time I saw him, the owner, I replayed that conversation in my head. The way he leaned back in his chair. The way he said grateful like it was a favor to let me breathe the same air as him. $70,000. That number followed me everywhere. I wasn't broke. I was doing fine. But it wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the way it disappeared. Not through negotiation, not through a misunderstanding, but through intimidation. I realized something unsettling. This wasn't new behavior for him. This was just the first time it had happened to me. I started noticing things I'd ignored before. Vendors getting squeezed on payment terms. Employees quietly pushed out right before bonuses vested. Deals where handshake promises mysteriously didn't count once the paperwork showed up. I'd always rationalized it. Business is business. It's complicated. There are two sides to every story. Now I saw the pattern. They didn't break the law. They broke people. Slowly, cleanly, with plausible deniability. At night, the anxiety came in waves. I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling that tight band across my chest. I'd think about the open positions still running. Think about how much they were worth. Think about how easily this could all go wrong if anyone asked the right questions. But nobody did. Weeks passed. Then months. The owner never asked for statements. Never asked for tax documents. Never asked about performance. He acted as if the account no longer existed. At first, I thought maybe he was waiting, testing me. Then I realized something far more dangerous. He'd forgotten, or worse, he'd never really understood it in the first place. That realization scared me more than the confrontation ever did, because if he didn't understand what was happening with his own money, then he also wasn't watching me. And that meant I was alone with decisions that could change my life permanently. The market kept falling. Every morning, I'd check futures before brushing my teeth. NASDAQ down. Again. Another company missing earnings, another .com quietly disappearing. The open positions grew. A few 100,000 turned into 7 figures. I told myself I should say something. That the ethical thing would be to remind him, to reopen the conversation, to fight it out like adults. But every time I imagined sitting across from him again, hearing that same tone, be grateful, my stomach knotted. I remembered the way he didn't hesitate, so I stopped hesitating too. I doubled down on discipline. Every trade was documented, every decision logged, taxes planned, risk measured. I wasn't gambling, I was executing. Emotion stayed out of it. At work, my reputation quietly improved. Ownership saw me as loyal, dependable, someone who didn't nickel and dime them. I got pulled into more meetings, more influence, more access. The irony wasn't lost on me. They trusted me more because they thought I'd let them walk over me. Meanwhile, the account, the one in my name, crossed a line I never expected. 7 figures in realized gains, then more. There were nights I'd sit alone at my kitchen table, laptop open, staring at the numbers, feeling completely detached from my own body. This wasn't triumph. It was pressure. Because the more it grew, the more irreversible it became. I wasn't angry anymore. I was calm, and that scared me. One afternoon, maybe a year later, the owner made an offhand comment in a meeting. "Remember that little market thing we did?" he said, laughing. "Glad that's over." I felt my pulse in my ears. I nodded, said nothing. That was the moment I knew. He was never going to ask. And if he never asked, then the decision had already been made. All I had to do was finish what I'd started. By the time I accepted what was happening, the emotional storm had passed. There was no rage left, no bitterness, just clarity. I stopped thinking of it as revenge. I started thinking of it as balance. He'd tried to take what he didn't earn. I'd kept what he didn't value enough to track. That's how business works. Or at least, that's how he taught me it worked. I consulted professionals quietly, not about morality, about execution. Accountants, tax specialists, people who didn't ask questions as long as paperwork was clean. Everything was legal. That mattered to me. I paid every dollar I owed. Long-term capital gains. State, federal. No shortcuts. If this ever came up, if anyone ever tried to unwind it, there would be nothing to grab onto. I covered shorts slowly, exercised options methodically. No sudden moves, no spikes that would draw attention. The final tally settled around $1.8 million. After taxes, it was still more money than I'd ever imagined having. I didn't change my lifestyle. I didn't tell anyone. I kept driving the same car, living in the same place, showing up to the same office, and ownership leaned on me more than ever. They trusted me with bigger projects, more sensitive conversations, internal disputes, family drama. They saw me as loyal, reliable, grateful. I worked there 3 more years. When I finally gave notice, the owner shook my hand, said he appreciated my integrity, said I'd always have a place there. I thanked him, and I left. The company folded a few years later. Family infighting, lawsuits, broken relationships. They walked away rich anyway. I walked away free. People always imagine revenge as loud confrontations, shouting, gotcha moments. This wasn't that. This was quiet. Years passed. Nobody ever called. No emails, no questions. The account stayed closed. The paperwork stayed filed. The story stayed buried. Sometimes I think about that moment, him telling me to be grateful, and I feel a strange sense of gratitude of my own. Not for the money. For the lesson: power doesn't always announce itself. Greed doesn't always look angry. And justice doesn't always need witnesses. I didn't beat him. I outlasted him. And I slept just fine. I don't tell this story to brag. I tell it because most people think revenge has to be emotional to be real. It doesn't. Sometimes the most satisfying revenge is simply refusing to correct someone who's already wrong, especially when they wouldn't have corrected themselves for you. I didn't take what wasn't mine. I kept what I earned, and I let silence do the rest. If you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or told to be grateful while someone tried to take advantage of you, remember this story. Patience beats rage. Documentation beats shouting. And the long game always favors the prepared. Thanks for listening.